Currently, it's quite hectic. We are realizing the last landscaping of the island before the new season starts. But that's what I'm doing right now. A bit about myself. As you said, I frame myself as a whole systems designer because I believe that in my profession as an architect, I'm not just looking at stones. Actually, I'm more as a designer, meaning that I don't care if I'm designing a bathtub or a bathroom or a house or a landscape. For me, it's the same because I design along the same principles, which are inspired by how nature operates. And for this, I look at biomimicry, I look at permaculture, I also look at agroecology. So for me, all those disciplines are just different ways of looking at how we can mimic and model natural ecosystems in how we sustain our daily needs like food, water, shelter, warmth, all those things. So in the bottom line, my purpose of my work is the question: how can we sustain our basic human needs, also the social environment, apart from the water, food, shelter, and warmth, and at the same time restore ecosystems. And I believe in a core value that we humans are capable of being a positive impact on our natural ecosystem. So in a nutshell, that's also what I'm trying to exhibit on the island Utopia. And that's what I'm going to show you today. So, well, this is the island called Utopia. It wasn't named by me, Utopia. It was actually named by one of the people who is naming all the street names and areas in Almere. He has quite a creative brain. So he called it Utopia Island. And funny enough, it's quite interesting because it's the heart of the city center of Almere. The whole city of Almere is built around the lake you see here called Weerwater. And there also was Atlantis Strand here, which is quite a good joke because, you know, Almere is 5 meters below sea level. And I'm quite happy with the name because it also allows me to, what I said, exhibit something which might not be feasible for the whole world, but at least it's a beautiful vision of how we could restore ecosystems and at the same time grow food. This I do with the stichting called Weerwoud. And here you see in the logo the tower, and the tower is also on the island. You'll see it in some pictures, and this is literally the tower is the heart of the city of Almere. If you walk outside of the train station and you look in winter over the boulevard, you'll see the tower in front of you. So it's quite a symbolic place. The island actually is going to be physically connected by this grid inside here. You can see the squares of the Floriade World Exposition, which will be held in 2022. And funny enough, we are an island which is hanging on this grid, but at the same time we're also hanging loose from this exhibition. And nobody asked me to do the designing. It was actually a green spot on the map when they won the competition for having the Floriade in Almere. By some luck or some haphazardness, I was able to frame a concept in which I want to show how you can have different zones of perennial agriculture and at the same time use the momentum of the Floriade to actually also have a bigger podium for this. As you can see here, the grid is the square. Within this, you have this grid with all the exhibitions inside. And funny enough, I'm allowed to design this whole place, which is about 4 hectares. And we have a lot of partners involved with this. So first of all, I'm not doing it all by myself. I'm just happy enough to be able to be the curator of the island, not only design the island, also implement the realization, but also strike collaborations with many parties, which in my perspective fit and help in this bigger mission. So first of all, we have support from the government of the Ministry of Agriculture. They have given me a big grant for one part of the island. The province of Flevoland is supporting us on different parts of the island. We also have a close collaboration with the city of Almere because they are responsible for developing the whole terrain of the Floriade, and with their help, we get a lot of materials, trees they don't use in their exhibition and all those things. And currently, we are also talking to the municipality of Amsterdam in a different way, which I'll talk about later. Apart from the support from the governmental area, we also have education. involved. So we're supported by the Flevo Campus, which is an institution which is there to raise the educational level and awareness of Almere as a whole, because it's going to be the fourth city of the Netherlands and it needs a different infrastructure. I also have a collaboration with Wageningen, who I gave an assignment. And we're also working together with the University of Applied Sciences. And then apart from this, we have a lot of organizations, enterprises, big scale like hearth, which have 1,800 hectares of organic farming in Flevoland, but also smaller startups like, for example, Wilderland, whom we are also testing how we can grow herb tea in our agroforestry area. Too much to name, but we also have a cultural part in which we will have theater during the exposition, and we also have currently talks with Staatsbosbeheer and IVN and Stad de Natuur for other parties. So it's quite a big event, and just to know, it's not solely my input which is valuable here. So the main question for the exhibition is, what do I want to tell people why they should come to Utopia Island? As a small joke, we use this cartoon about our unhappy relationship with our natural environment. It ticks all the boxes of an unhappy relationship in some way. And we want to show, like I said before, that there's also a positive twist to this. So this is what we show the people who are not very into regenerative agriculture or ecosystem restoration. For you, what I want to talk more about is how can we show that you can restore this natural world and at the same time grow food for us with a new farming system. And our bigger statement, mission statement, therefore, is a little bit broader because we think that the island and this mission of growing a perennial agriculture is just a tool for a broader society, which as a whole is involved with its natural environment. And we believe that actually the cityscape is one which is mostly forgotten, but has the most impact on changing our globe. So we can protect nature in some certain ways. We can rejuvenate nature, but in some way, how can we create an urban landscape, which in a sense, we are cohabiting with the natural environment and at the same time also are personally involved with. So we then can also build a relationship with, and we also keep motivated to keep it healthy and clean, because in the end, only 1% of the globe is populated by cities, and about 80% of the globe is being affected of how we feed cities and how we need all the materials for building those cities. In the basic level, to boil it down, we want to have two ways of sharing this concept with the people who are visiting the island. One is we want to show that yes, we can restore ecosystems with the way we grow food. A big question. And the second one is also to change the perspective of how people look at themselves in relationship to nature, because I think a lot of our solutions and problems are, the way we look at them stem from the perspective of how we see ourselves in relationship to our natural environment. If we see ourselves apart from it, we will probably keep protecting nature and think that's enough. But if we see ourselves as part of nature, and thereby not only distinguish, and thereby we stop distinguishing our own health, like let's say, and our own lungs, from the natural environment, which at the same time also protects the health of our lungs. So those are the two levels I would like to show people around. At the same time, that's the end of the text for now. We also want to use the decade of ecosystem restoration as a framework in which we want to do the project. So we make use of the momentum of the Floriade to get this project on the roll. But at the same time, we are now talking to the municipality of Almere to actually keep the project going for the next 10 years in order to fulfill the whole decade. And also the partners I talked to you about, most of them are also involved for this whole decade. So to boil down, we have the island. We have 3 zones in which we will show how you can grow a perennial agriculture in the city. One is the agricultural scale, which is mostly on the outskirts of the city. One is more the recreational area, which is the green areas connected to the city or inside the city, or the smaller city parks or school areas in the city itself. And they all have the same message of how to restore the ecosystem. I hope this is somehow clear, that we have the whole island divided in 3 zones, and each represent a different zone of the city. Unfortunately, we're not allowed to affect the grid inside here, because then we would have a 4th zone, which would be the urban area with the housing and all those things. So currently, I'm also designing an edible neighborhood in Utrecht, which is quite big. But unfortunately, I wasn't able to use my experience to reshape the squares you see here of the World Exposition part on the island. We do try to protect the water ecology in many ways, but I will not go into it in this presentation. So just to walk you through the 3 zones, give you a gist of the project. The west part of the island we call the agricultural zone, and that's where we'll establish an agroforestry project, which is already there. And there we have 2 parts. One is the agroforestry area itself, where we show 8 types of systems you can implement on different farms. And we have a nature zone around it, and where we have an exhibition and ways to tell people about how nature works. We want to show people that we can also farm in a similar way, that it has the same performances as a natural ecosystem in terms of water cycles, carbon sequestration, healthy soil, all those kind of things, and also attract biodiversity. In this, we have an exposition room with a kitchen for workshops and all those things. And we also have a smaller area we called market garden, by which we do the bio-intensive market garden type. And we also have our office over there. Agroforestry, in a sense, is a combination of how you combine agriculture with the crops, like let's say potatoes, carrots, and all those things in combination with trees, or how can you combine trees with livestock, let's say chickens, cows, or pigs, or those things. And this is the project itself, as you can see. So we have rows of trees in the smallest distance we can have, because we don't have much scale. We want to test many things as possible. And in between here, you can see those rows. We have here strip cropping, which is the system which RFPV is testing on their plots in Flevoland. And we have the same rotation. We have their machines who also help us clean the fields, resow them, harvest them. And we are with them also investigating how the trees are affecting the crops, but also how they can be implemented maybe on larger scale. They have already current plans for it. At the same time, we're also having research at Wageningen in order to economically calculate how each of every 8 models could be scaled up for a different farm. So that sort of gives you an impression of the agroforestry area. I can talk for hours, so I'm going to skip to the next one. The middle area, like I said, is the recreational zone, as you can see here. And this is what we will make a food forest. So maybe for most people who are not familiar with the 2 systems, for us, a food forest is not an farming practice. It's more an urban farming practice in which it's very low in efficiency, and also the yields are not comparable to an agroforestry system, because the way you harvest it or the design behind it is such more complex that it suits more for, let's say, a park landscape or for private projects, and not so much more as for a farmer, because for a farmer to have like 2 or 3 crops is already quite a lot, especially if it comes to perennials. And for a city park, it's a lot more attractive to have, let's say, more forest appeal. In this recreational zone, we also are creating a forest theater. There we will have, during the exposition, we'll have 60 to 80,000 students from all around the Netherlands coming to a theater, which is going to be hosted by a group called the Bonte Hond from Almere. And they also have their theater inspired by the idea of how we as humans are part of nature. So everything on the island is supporting the storyline. Just to go a bit about the food forest, as I said before, for us it's not agriculture the way agroforestry is in farming way. We do imitate a natural ecosystem in terms of a forest, and we want to create a healthy system which mimics the performance as of a natural agroforest. But while we use edible crops, we model them after the forest in a way that actually it also a bit looks like a forest. And it looks very different, as you can imagine, as you can see here from the agroforestry plot. This is a project I managed for 6 years, and it's a lot more romantic. It's a lot more appealing to people from the city, we figured out, and farmers generally don't have a lot of interest in this complexity. The theater itself will be designed by Will Beckers. He was the Willowman in the World Expo 10 years ago. He was quite a big success back then, and we were very lucky to have him as an artist on the island, because apart from the theater roof, I'm co-designing with him the podium. As I said, no, it's not the podium. It's called where you sit. Anyway, I lost the word. But he's also having other parts of the island where he's gonna build art pieces for us in collaboration with the Hal van Lagenstein School of Applied Sciences, because we want to use his art as a way to attract people in order to figure out, wow, this is really cool looking. And then as soon as they go to it, they learn more about ecosystems, or they learn more about what the idea of the island is, because we have to accept that most people are more interested in the cover by the book than the content of the book. So we really would like to have this landscape art as a tool to elicit the interest of people. On the east of the island, we have the scale of the city park school area, and this is a concept I designed by which I use patterns of nature. Here we also have other inzendingen, which is called parties, which are partners, and they're going to have their own exhibition here. So we have Wilde Wilde, which is a collective of organic hoveniers. What's it called? I forgot the name. But we also have the city of Amsterdam, and we also have IVN with Eris MBO here. And this is a landscape which I have designed using the trees we had to cut down because of the disease they had, and they were going to be very dangerous to keep around. And this is a pattern of flow in which I'm now making the landscape bigger, and here we have another partner. So this is, you see, the Eris MBO. The students designed this little forest here. I've designed an edible forest here. And Wilde Wilde is actually the gold medal winner of the last Floriade. They're going to build a 1,000 square garden, which they're going to exhibit their way of gardening. And at the same time, we have 100 years of school gardens of Amsterdam. And they will have a year round of the Floriade, a school from Amsterdam and a school from Almere together gardening on this site. So they all are involved in sharing the idea of the island, but then with a bigger group. We also have other talks with other parties. Currently, we are talking to Climate Cleanup about an idea we have, but we're also talking to Gizou, which is a brand of oil hair from a model from Almere. She's an influencer apparently, and if they are going to be part of the landscape, we also have like a very interesting different group we're going to attract. So to sum up, I hope I'm still within the time, Sven. We on the west side have the agroforestry area, in which we have the 8 zones, which we are investigating with Wageningen and with RFBV, also with different partners like Wilderland, also a beer brewer. In the middle, we have the food forest with the forest here there. And on the east side, we have a landscape with different parties who are involved in also taking their share of the landscaping. Here you can see the cable track, which is the biggest attraction of the Floriade you can have. Every Floriade has a cable track, and about 80% of the people will make use of it. So that's a big win for us that we'll have such much visitors on the island. And like I said before, we're going to keep the island hopefully until after the Floriade. So this is sort of the gist of the project. Apart from this, what we also have is we have a program, and that's what we call the living lab. So apart from the area, we have programming. And The programming is mostly focused on the agroforestry area because that's where the government is actually giving us money for. And on the next slide, you see there for the agroforestry area again. There we have the idea, like we said, how can we as a nation grow more agroforestry? So the ambition of the government is to restore to realize about 30,000 hectares of agroforestry in the Netherlands by 2035, which is quite ambitious. And with this project, we hope to give a bigger platform to the idea of agroforestry to a bigger audience, therefore help reach this goal. So this is a replication of the previous slide. This is the agroforestry site itself. So as you can see here, we have different combinations of growing trees with annuals or trees with farming. So this is the impression of how this could look. And the main idea of the agroforestry is not so much only to grow ecological values, but at the same time answer the question, how can this fit farming practice? How can this be part of their business instead of having an extra goal to restore an ecosystem? They actually, I believe, should have a model in which they have benefit of having the trees on their site. And in the end, the goal of how can we help farmers scale this type of farming. The Living Lab is, as you can see here, this is our New Year's cheesy card, where we have a lot of people involved already. In the Living Lab, we have, like I said, a lot of partners involved. So here we have the Volunteers Days. We already have a first beer from the island from Brouwerij Stijl. Iris MBO did their workshops of how to learn to cut trees, in which they help us because we have a lot of diseased ash trees on the island. With ERF, we did the potatoes. Here we have our first organic walnut liquor, which the first one I gave to the mayor of Almere. And he's going to also open the island. We do workshops for our volunteers. The tea, all the things we do in order to hopefully create this culture of the city, of restoring also the ecosystem, but at the same time have our benefits of it as well. And during this programming of the Living Lab, we want to focus mainly on 4 target groups, which is the agriculturalist, school students and research. We also have, of course, during the Floriade, international delegations from other governments. We have also, like I said, our volunteer community, but also we have the visitors, which is a whole different group. And as a whole, we would like to connect those 4 target groups in a programming in which we mix them together. So we hopefully have, let's say, policymakers on the floor at the same time as we have, let's say, the people from the volunteer group, and hopefully we can get them to get some co-creation going. This is our programming for the next 2 years. So now we're finishing the landscaping. We are preparing the programming, which will start in the 3rd quarter of this year. And then we have the opening, as I said. And finally, next year we'll have like a big circus, which is called the Floriade, which is going to be like a fanfare. We also have currently 2 documentaries already made. One is of 20 minutes by Flevoland, one is by the Floriade. You can scan this, and currently there's being a documentary being made by Ahmed Polat. We're thinking of making more longer one in the near future of the project. That's the project as far as I can share with you right now.